Sorry for the little delay, but we're glad to see all of your faces for what we know is a really important topic. We'll just get started in just a moment. Some more people join us, but thank you again for being here tonight. Just to let everyone know, everyone is muted. There'll be opportunity for questions as well at the end or conversation. You can always use the chat box to chat us. David Burke, if you want to wave your hand, David will be taking some of the questions. He'll introduce himself in a little while, but if you want to be a part of that, you can use the chat box as we begin in a second.
Carol, can you take your phone off mute? Take yourself off mute? I can do that for you. Okay.
I'm off it.
Great. So good evening. I'm Ethan Prosnett, Rabbi at Temple Emanu-El in Westfield, New Jersey. I know we have members of our community, but we also have members of the larger Reform movement of New Jersey through our partnership with the Religious Action Center of New Jersey. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But before we start, I just want to mark this moment. For many, it's the first time that we are gathering since the terrible racism and police brutality that we have seen in our community and the protests that have really stirred our nation. I have been struggling with what to say over this past week and a half. I've been having lots of conversations of what should we do, how do we act, how do we listen. And I think one way we do that is really by being here tonight, being here together, because I think we are going to learn about voting, and voting is one way that we think, that we believe that we can make sure that our country is as fair, as equitable, and we can fight for racial justice through our voting as well. And so I begin with a prayer by Rabbi Peter Stein. It's a prayer for our country. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, Makor habracha, Makor chaim, source of blessing, source of life. You have implanted within us great abilities, the ability to heal, the ability to create hope, the ability to pursue justice and to create peace. We can each be a source of blessing. We can each create and protect life. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, Makor habracha, Makor chaim, source of blessing, source of life. Bless us with the strength, courage, and wisdom to reach the fullness of our potential as healers, as creators of hope, as Rodefei Tzedek, Rodefei Shalom, those who live in pursuit of justice and peace. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, Makor habracha, Makor hachaim, source of blessing, source of life. We need leaders who will unite us to pursue the common goal of safety and equality. We need leaders who will unite us and create opportunities and security for one and for all. Help us on the path to cooperation and understanding. Help us to learn how to live together. Help us to hear the cry of those who are oppressed. Help us to make this country a place of love and peace. And together we say, Amen. Amen. And so just two quick introductions, and then I'm going to turn it over. And so the first one is to Rabbi Victor Appel. Rabbi Appel, if you want to wave. Rabbi Appel is going to be the new associate rabbi at Temple Emanu-El. We are really excited that he will be joining our team on July 1st and really working with our social justice task force. And so I'm excited you are with us tonight. And the second introduction is to my friend, Sarah Blaine. I just got to meet her, so I think I can call you a friend. But Sarah and I have been working closely together as we transition Reformed Jewish Voice of New Jersey to the Religious Action Center of New Jersey. And Sarah is our full-time community organizer with RAC New Jersey, and we are so excited for her to be a part of our team. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rabbi Prosnett. First, I just want to take a moment to say what an amazing partner Rabbi Prosnett and the Westfield congregation and many other Reform Jews throughout the state have all been so far as we've been working to do this work, and what an amazing foundation all of you have built for the work we're doing, with victories like the passage of the driver's license bill, and more directly relevant to our topic tonight, a victory on expanding voting rights to those who were formerly incarcerated, which feels incredibly salient in the current moment. There are three aspects to our RAC New Jersey work right now as we're moving through this transition. The first is that we're doing a House meeting campaign. We're in the middle of a House meeting campaign where we're working to really understand our present, what we've been experiencing in this pandemic, in the changes in our country and the pain in our country, and to dream about our future and what we can do to make New Jersey a more just and more compassionate state to live in. We are also excited that we are partnering with Congregation B'nai Jeshurun in Short Hills to do some racial justice education in our own communities. That will start next week on Thursday night with a discussion around the Netflix movie American Son. And what I'm here to really talk to you all tonight about is our civic engagement work. Civic engagement has never felt more important. And this past month in May, the Reform Movement kicked off its 2020 civic engagement campaign. And what we know is that here in New Jersey, we are 40 plus congregations located physically in 27 legislative districts with individual congregants living in many more districts. And so what that means is that although individually we may not have a lot of power, as we work together and move together and push on particular issues together and vote and document our votes together, we have the opportunity to build a lot of power here in New Jersey. And so that's the work that we're doing. Our campaign has three major parts. The first is to engage our own voters. Those in Westfield, I think, are already familiar with being a 100% voting congregation. And we're gathering commitments from many more congregations across the state to also work and to put in the work and to organize to be 100% voting congregations this year. The second piece of that is to work to combat voter suppression. We have some nationwide initiatives that we are doing with the Center for Common Ground. And we're also working with some potential, we're looking into partners within New Jersey and to have a more specific plan that will really engage our voters here in New Jersey. And the third piece is to engage our student voters. And we know that student voters are often have a very difficult time voting because they face all sorts of issues. My past life, I was a lawyer and I did a lot of election protection work at Montclair State University as I live in Montclair. And I saw this firsthand that students were confused. They didn't know where to vote. They didn't know where they were registered. And there's a lot of work to be done around empowering student voters. So I'm so appreciative to be here tonight. I've had a chance to preview some of what we're going to hear tonight a couple of nights ago. And it's really important in this election more than ever as we're moving to vote by mail that we take the time to do this voter education. And so we will be helping to make sure that all of us understand what's happening with voting and why we vote and how we vote. And thank you all for a few minutes tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah, if people want to get in touch with you, can you put your email in the chat box if you're interested in learning more about RAC New Jersey or any of our campaigns going forward? Sarah is a great connection. And also just on this call is Liz Cohen. Liz Cohen has been my co-chair with Reform Jewish Voice in New Jersey. And she's done amazing groundwork for this as we transition to RAC New Jersey. I'm now going to turn it over to David Burke, the chair of our Tikkun Olam committee, just to introduce tonight's evening and then introduce the introducer of our speaker.
Hi, everybody. David Burke here, holding my mail-in ballot that just came in today. Thank you, Joanne. Joanne spoke at our synagogue the last presidential election cycle, and she was terrific. We have a longtime member of our social action committee on with us, Carol Cohen, who is a social justice warrior and a very good friend of our speaker. And I'd like Carol to introduce Joanne. And as Joanne speaks, you certainly can send questions to me in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of the evening. Carol?
Very good. It's my pleasure to be introducing Joanne. Joanne Rajapi is the first woman county clerk in the 160-year history of Union County. Elected county clerk in 1995 and re-elected in 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015. She served previously as the first woman Union County Register of Deeds and Mortgages for 12 years. Mr. Joppy is known as a tech innovator dedicated to greater access for voters, and she offered the first satellite vote-by-mail location. The New Jersey League of Women Voters presented her with the Making Democracy Work Award in 2014 in recognition of her contribution to safe voting. In the 2008 presidential primary, Mr. Joppy made national headlines when she took on the National Voting Machine Company for voting discrepancies. The case went to court where security measures on machines were mandated. I will now, with pleasure, turn the floor over to Joanne Rajapi. Thank you. No, can't hear you.
Joanne, you muted yourself.
Sorry. Better? Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Sarah. I'm coming to you tonight to give you basically an update because we have an historic occasion ahead of us. This will be the first time ever New Jersey had an all vote by mail election. And of course, the reason for that is on May 15th, Governor Murphy issued an executive order based on the pandemic and the concerns with people voting on machines and spreading the contagion. So this means for us that all registered Democratic voters in the state, all registered Republican voters in the state will automatically get a vote by mail ballot. You don't have to apply for it. The executive order actually acts as the application for everyone. So you're going to get one whether you want one or not. And you need to vote it because you're not going to be able to vote at a polling place. Let me just go back a moment. Unaffiliated voters, those that never declared themselves affiliated with a party, or inactive voters, those people that have not voted in the past 2 federal elections, will automatically be sent a vote by mail application. When they get it, they can decide if they want to fill it out. If they do, I will send them a ballot and they'll be able to vote. So in Union County, we have approximately 340,000 registered voters. That's a lot of mail. The governor also said that there would only be a limited number of polling places. So actually, he said no more than 50% of the ones you currently have. We have 432 districts in Union County, election districts. We probably have close to a little over 200 polling places. That's going to be cut in half. The only people that are going to be able to vote in that polling location on a machine are those that are disabled, that fall under the American with Disabilities Act. People that cannot use a paper ballot for some reason. If you go to the polling place and you are not disabled, you have one choice, and that choice is to vote on a paper provisional ballot. So your best bet when you get the vote by mail is to vote it, okay? I have a stamp on it. You don't have to put a stamp on it. It's a self-sealing envelope. It's pretty easy, and there are some errors people make, but we'll go through those in a moment. So that's the basics. There are some concerns. I was on a panel the other day at Eagleton, and the Secretary of State from Washington State was there. And she mentioned that they started vote by mail in Washington State, all vote by mail in 2014, but she had about 5 to 6 years to implement it. We're doing it in about 2 weeks. So I'm saying good luck. I think people should, when they get their ballot, and they're out now, I just sent out approximately 22,000 since Tuesday. The rest will start going tomorrow. Tomorrow, Saturday, Monday. Everyone should have their ballot by the 3rd week in June. If you do not get a ballot for some reason, you can go to the Westfield office. I just reopened it at the Colleen Fraser building. Everyone knows where that is, I think across from the Westfield Diner. And let us know if you didn't get your ballot, and I will issue you a duplicate ballot. Not a problem. There are going to be secured ballot boxes around the county. There's going to be 5 of them. They are going to be under surveillance. There will be cameras around those boxes. Any voter can place a ballot in there prior to 8 p.m. on July 7th. So if you are late in mailing your ballot, you might want to do that. Ballots that are received, and the governor gave the Board of Elections 7 days to receive every ballot, as long as it's postmarked by 8 p.m. July 7th. The mail, I suspect, is going to be slow. There are 6.1 million voters in New Jersey. Everyone's going to get a vote by mail ballot. In addition to that, there's going to be probably at least 3 million returned. So that's the post office dealing with 9 million pieces of mail in 2.5 weeks. So you can see the problem. I will accept vote by mails at my office. The only difference is if you come to my office to give me a vote by mail, I have to see proof. I have to see a New Jersey ID, a driver's license, for example, and you have to sign a book. If you use a dropped box and we don't know where they're going to be yet, you don't have to do anything. The other issue is you cannot bring someone else's ballot in. For this election, you are only allowed to carry your own ballot. Sample ballots. The governor suspended the mailing of sample ballots. What's going to happen is I am putting them up on my website. And there will be sample ballots also at the polling places. And you might wonder where your polling place is. Well, I'm going to send you a postcard with a notice where your polling place is, because remember, they're going to be consolidated. But the only reason you would go there is that you maybe lost your vote by mail, or you made a mistake on your vote by mail and you want a new one, or you just want to go to the polling place. I have never voted by mail in my life. This is going to be a first for me, I'll tell you. So let me just show you. Maybe show is better. David, you had shown your envelope, and it looks like this when it comes, and you can't miss it because it says official mail-in ballot, and it's oversized. And in it are 3 items. The first being your ballot, and it looks like this. You'll get a Democratic one if you're a Democrat, and you'll get a Republican one if you're a Republican. So it has rows and columns, and next to people's names are ovals. You cannot circle the name, you cannot cross out names, you have to fill in the oval with a black pen. That's the only way the machine will read it. And you can't put any identifying marks on the ballot. I've seen people sign their ballot. Well, that's against the privacy of your vote. You know, your vote is secret, don't put any marks on it. Fold it up, and there are 2 envelopes in this, and this is called a certificate envelope, and it looks pretty funny. It has a flap on it. So you put your ballot in here and you seal it up at the top, and then this is very important. This is why a lot of votes are not opened. You have to fill out the certificate with your name, your address, and your signature, because that's the validation that you're the voter and your ballot's inside. So lest you think your privacy is infringed upon, it is not. When this gets to the Board of Election, they check that you're the voter. They detach this flap They leave your ballot in the envelope and they put it aside and they open it later on election day. So your ballot is secure. So if somebody helped you with the ballot, you know, a family member or a friend, they would be an assister and they also have to sign this. Then this envelope with your ballot in goes into the return envelope. And you can see that the return envelope has a postage paid indicia on it. It's addressed. Again, there's a little flap in the back where you can write your name and address. And here's another important note. Over here, if you give this ballot to someone to mail for you or to take to the Board of Elections, they're called the bearer or the carrier or the deliverer. They have to fill this out. Very important, okay? So the most common mistakes, I'll tell you, and then you won't make them. The most common mistake is someone fills out their ballot and then they go to the certificate envelope and fill that out and forget to put their ballot in it. So that's a common error. Another common error is that people detach this flap. They take it off. Don't do that. The flap has to be attached. And there are other errors, but we can go into them. But remember, the deadline is July 7th. To mail your ballot, it must be postmarked by that date. And you can, prior to doing that, you can always mail it and you can always drop it in a box and you can always bring it to my office or the Board of Elections office. Pretty easy. So I think at this point, I'm going to ask you what your questions are. I will tell you two things. One is that we have a resource website for elections. It's called unioncountyvotes.com. unioncountyvotes.com. That's where you're going to find the sample ballots. They're not up yet, but that's where you can find out about the candidates running, who was running. You can find out the new polling places will be up there. The old polling places are up there right now. The new ones we don't know yet. The location of the ballot boxes will be up there and any other information. It's updated regularly, so it's a very good resource. And you can also download a free app I have. It's called Union County Votes. Everything you want to know is on there also. So it's pretty easy. I tell people call my office anytime. The number is 908-527-4996. That's 527-4996. We're there to help you. So please call on us if you need anything. So I guess Dave.
Thanks, Joanne. Appreciate that. I do want to say that this is the beginning of our synagogue's civic engagement campaign. So anybody interested to be part of that team, please reach out to me. But I'll start it off with a question. I have two college-age kids at home this summer. Last week, your office called and asked me if my son was home. And I didn't say my daughter is also home. So his ballot came today and hers didn't. And I think her ballot may be at her college. What should she do?
You should call the office, my office. We will send her a ballot to her location where she's at. This is going to be a common problem this election because so many kids, you know, did come home early from college. So it's a problem all around. But she can call the office and say who she is and explain the situation. It's easy to remedy.
Good. Here's another one. Will the Westfield office be open to accept ballots on election day?
Good question. Yes. Yes, we will be. And here's another issue that people aren't thinking about. July 4th is a holiday. And then you have Sunday, which is a holiday. So if you mail your ballot, you want to be sure that it's postmarked before July 7th or by July 7th. So I don't know what the mail's going to look like on July 6th and 7th. I just want people to vote early so we get the ballots in.
We have people on this who are not Union County voters. So the question is the process similar for Middlesex, Somerset, and any other county?
Yes, the executive order that was issued affects the whole state of New Jersey. And I know every county clerk personally, and we're all on the same page. We're trying to do a lot of outreach also to let people know what's going on. You know, thousands of people, David, use vote by mail or have used vote by mail in the past, but more have not used it. And especially to some people, it can be an intimidating process. There are instructions in the ballot. I didn't write the instructions, the state of New Jersey did, and personally, I think they could have done a better job, but that's my opinion. But we also have instructions on the website, step-by-step directions, so no one should be intimidated by it. Anyone can do it.
This is a very interesting question. If the post office becomes defunded for some reason, what is the contingency plan for vote by mail?
That's a great question. We actually talked about that, the county clerks among themselves. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Amazon has been thinking of starting a mail service. I don't know. We'd probably have to rely on people coming into the office or using the drop boxes. As I said, there's only 5 of them around the county. They are supposed to be placed in accessible areas. And as I said, they're under scrutiny, they're under surveillance. So that's what we'd have to rely on because there are no other plans, contingency plans that the state has developed.
Maybe that number would increase from 5, perhaps.
Well, the state is providing these boxes. So there's actually 7 because I have 2 offices. So I have my own boxes. So they could come to Elizabeth, they could come to Westfield, and I assume there'll probably be a box in Westfield too, another box.
Here's a question about college student voting. If the student is registered in a state other than New Jersey, but they're home now, can they vote in New Jersey?
Oh, good question. They have to June 16th to register. So hurry up and tell them to register right now.
So they have to re-register in New Jersey
It's not re-registering, they're registering in New Jersey.
instead. So then they would not be registered in their college
Correct.
town anymore.
You can't vote in 2 places.
You can only vote once.
Only if you're from Hudson County.
Okay, here is one. If we vote by mail this year, will we be permanently obligated to vote by mail in the future?
Not at all. This only affects, the executive order is only for the July primary. I will tell you though, that many people, such as myself, suspect that we will also have a vote by mail election in November. But once you just because you voted by mail this election, that you will not be on any lists unless you're on the permanent vote by mail list.
So Murphy's executive order is only for this primary election in July.
Correct. Correct.
Here is a voter who says she understands that people can't bring the VBM ballot to a polling place. Is that true?
Yes, that is absolutely true. They will not accept it at the polling place.
Okay. Another person who is concerned about other counties. Does every county have drop boxes as well? Are they making the same plans for that?
Yes, the executive order specified that every county must have 5 drop boxes. Every county, all 21. The state is also, you can imagine the cost of this. I mean, I spent $500,000 on envelopes. I ordered 1 million envelopes because there's 3 envelopes, right, that we use. It cost $1 million. Close to $500,000, excuse me. It was 1 million envelopes. So it's a very expensive election. We aren't sending sample ballots, so we save some money there. We save some money also because we don't have the same number of poll workers because we have consolidated polling locations. The state is reimbursing us for some of these costs. If they did not, primary costs are borne by the towns. General election costs are borne by the county. So what I have to do in a primary, David, is charge back to the town for the printing of their ballots, for example. So if I had did that now, Westfield would be bankrupt because they don't have it in their budget. So the state is coming in. They are not paying for everything, but I believe they just showed me the reimbursement schedule today. I think we'll get at least $60,000 back for some things. That doesn't begin to cover what I'm spending, but it helps. It helps.
Thank you. This is a question about the general election. Is there going to be a vote by mail in the general election? I guess the answer is anybody can vote by mail. What is the process? So they will not automatically receive a ballot because they voted this way. So if they want to vote by mail in the general election, what would be that process?
Okay, there's a checkoff. You can get an application for a vote by mail, and there's a checkoff on it. And the checkoff is, I want to vote by mail for this election only, or I want to vote by mail for all future elections until I say I don't. But because you got one now does not mean you're going to get one in the future. I have no idea if we're going to have an all vote by mail election in November. If we do, the governor will have to issue, obviously, another executive order. But there's a good possibility because I don't think this virus is going away anytime soon.
We might have to have you come back in September to re-educate us.
You'll be
October.
pros. You'll be pros by then.
Here's a question, and it's a couple part. Well, I have one part. Can you debunk the myth that vote by mail favors any party over the other?
I don't think it does personally. I know the Republican Party is not fond of it. I will say this. I think there is a higher threshold in using it for those that are less privileged or less educated. There is a curve. There's a learning curve when you do vote by mail. It's a step-by-step process. So number one, you have to be literate and you have to be able to read directions and follow them. And I'm not casting aspersions, but I'm just saying that there are some people that need more help with it than others, especially in maybe more urban areas. I don't think it favors anyone, and I think it is an extremely reliable system. Remember, it's paper. You can't hack paper. Can you steal paper? Yes, but you can't hack it. And you always have a verifiable record. You can always go back and say, hey, this was the voters' intent here. They voted for this candidate. I can tell that because even though they didn't color in the circle all the way, they circled the name. So when a voter does that, the commissioners at the Board of Elections literally take a vote. They look at the ballot and they determine what they believe the voter's intent was. So if the voter circled the name, 99.9%, they're going to say that's who the voter chose, right? I think it's very reliable. I'm not sure that it favors any particular party, though.
Thank you. Can you talk about how the vote by mail ballots are counted, and if, since many of those will be early votes, are there any results posted from early balloting like this?
Oh, no. By law, ballots cannot be opened until Election Day. Now, whether the state is going to give a, what we say as Catholics, a Hail Mary pass on this, I don't know, because there's going to be so many ballots that have to be counted. They are counted via optical scan. So they're scanning machines and they go through the machine. If there is some type of, quote, impediment on the ballots, for example, somebody circled a name, the ballot is spitted out and then the Board of Elections commissioners have to vote on it. So it goes pretty quickly, the scans. but that's a heck of a lot to scan. I mean, even if we got 70% back of the 330,000 we mailed, that's a lot of ballots to scan. So the governor gave the boards of elections 7 days to receive ballots and to count them. But then you have provisional ballots. And quite honestly, provisional ballots take a long time to count, because the first thing you have to do before you can even open a provisional ballot is determine that the person that did it is actually a registered voter. So you have to check to make sure that they are in the database as a registered voter. Then secondly, you need to check to see if they voted by mail, because they can't vote twice, right? And then you can open it. If they did not vote by mail, then you can open the provisional ballot and count it. So we never post early election results. I know there are pollsters out there that are used to do exit polling. That's going to be a little difficult this year, right? So we may not know who won or lost for at least a week, maybe more.
So no election night parties anymore.
No.
We have actually 2 different people on the Zoomcast here who want to know how they can change their political party.
Unfortunately, if they're a registered member of a party, it is too late now to change your party affiliation. If you're unaffiliated, you can declare yourself still, but it's too late. It's 52 days, I believe, before Election Day to change your party.
Okay, thanks. Is there any way to check to see if your ballot has actually been received and counted?
Good question. Good question. The state of New Jersey had planned to put a tracking, computer tracking on the labels to see where they went from the voter to the mailbox to the Board of Elections. That did not work out. That program was abandoned this year. Many states do have tracking programs. The only way that right now to determine if your ballot was received, let's say you mail your ballot tomorrow, and next week you say, I want to make sure they got it. You must call the Board of Elections. They will tell you if they received it. If you want to know if your vote was counted after Election Day, the same thing. There is a program the state has, though, that I believe does tell you if your vote was counted.
How would they know that if you remove that thing from the back of the envelope, who you are?
Because the it is.
Your name is on the
counted.
ballot?
Pardon me?
Your name is on the ballot itself?
No, your name is not on the
Can't be on
ballot.
the ballot.
No, your ballot. No, his name is not on the ballot. There is a code on this, though. There is a label on this where your ballot is.
Got it.
Identifying label.
Thank you. Somebody wanted to know, as the ballots go out to voters, what is that process? How are they assembled? I guess you have a batch process, kind of what that works. How is that?
Well, most people don't know this, but there's no one ballot in a jurisdiction. Depending on the congressional district you're in, and Union County has 4 different congressional districts, depending on the town you're in, depending on local races, ward races, district races, I have 70 different versions of the ballot for this election. So every voter must be matched with their individual ballot. It is a very labor-intensive program. We do it by forms. So I have 70 forms. So I do form number 1, form number 2, etc. And it goes by town. So the first, and I refuse to send all the ballots out together because I don't want to flood the post office and cause a collapse there. So the first thing we did this week was we sent out all the vote by mails to people that were already going to get them. They're permanent vote by mail people. So there was about 33,000 of those. So they will all be out by tomorrow. The next step is to do all the registered Democrats and Republicans. Same process, one by one, matching the ballots to the people. But by town, it's easier to do it that way. And then they will be mailed by town. So all the Democrats and Republicans will go out for one town. I now have several towns done, and they will be going out Monday because there was no money for the post office. I had to get a check for the post office. I had to amend some contracts to fund this, and it's very costly.
I have one more question in the queue, so if anybody wants to send, please do so. The tactical question, what are the hours for the county clerk's office? Sound like someone needs to either come by or make a phone call.
Well, the hours for Westfield are from 8 to 4, and the hours for Elizabeth are 8:30 to 4. Actually, 4:30.
And can you give us,
And let me just make one other comment. I just opened Westfield on Tuesday, and I opened it for certain things. So for example, we aren't doing passports because the US State Department suspended passports. There's no travel, international travel right now. I am doing notaries, trade names, business names, etc., for which people need appointments. I am not taking anyone without an appointment, but if you are coming in for elections to drop off your ballot, you do not need an appointment. You can come anytime. You just tell the guard when you walk in that you're there to, hand in your ballot. And we did appointments because we want to keep the number of people in the office at any one time to a minimum.
this is an interesting question that just came in. Can you explain how the signature matching works for validating the ballots?
Yes.
And what happens if they conclude that it doesn't match the signature on the book that we always see when we come into the polling place?
Very good question. The state has a statewide voter registration database, and that database includes your voter history and your signature. Now, granted, that signature was taken when you registered the first time to vote. So if you were 18 and you're now 50, your signature probably has changed. And if you're older, it's probably changed even more. So my staff and the Board of Elections staff, we are not handwriting experts, but we know what to look for. We've taken handwriting courses, and the signature doesn't have to be an exact match at all. And we take into account age and disability. So it has to be blatantly different for us to question it. Blatantly different. And that happens because very often I get vote by mail applications for college students that are signed by their parents. Their name is signed by their parents. You know, they're trying to be helpful. So I send it back, and they said that's not the kid's signature. So it has to be bad. So what we do in my office, I can cure a signature. So if something comes in, David, say from you, and I say, oh, this doesn't look like your signature, I'm going to call you, and I'm going to say, listen, could you produce some proof, a copy of your driver's license or something else, so I can get that new signature on the record, right? Because you had an issue. But at the Board of Elections, with the ballot, there is no cure. If that signature on the flap is blatantly different than the signature in the voter registration database, they will question it and they won't open it. So that's an issue.
Well, they can always call you with questions. You want to give us the phone number one more time, and I'll type it in the chat box?
It's 908-527-4996, and it's www.unioncountyvotes.com. Everything you want to know about elections is on that website. And I hope everyone, when they get their ballot next week, Westfield will probably get theirs either late next week or Monday of the following week. Because as I said, it goes out by towns. So please open it and vote it and mail it early so the post office isn't overwhelmed, you know, or drop it off, even better. And I'll tell you, the ballots that are dropped off in my office, they go in a locked box. I do not have the key. Nobody in my office has the key. A Board of Elections supervisor will come every day to pick up those ballots and secure them at the Board of Elections so they are safe. So you need not fear.
I think we have we have one, somebody actually joined late, and we have just 2 more minutes. Just re-explain, this is somebody who has a college student at home. I assume this is a registered voter, and registered here in Westfield, but maybe they had their ballot sent to their school.
Okay.
Again, that process one more time.
So if they're registered already here in New Jersey and they did have a ballot sent to their school, they just need to call the office and explain that, and I will send out a duplicate ballot. If I have time to change it, if it hasn't gone out yet, I will correct it. The other thing is that they're registered in another state and they're now in New Jersey. They still have time to register in New Jersey. The deadline is June 16th. The forms are on the website. You just have to download a form. Unfortunately, you cannot register online. New Jersey had a program. They were going to institute that this year. It's not happening with everything else. So download the form and send it in and make sure that it's postmarked by the 16th. And you're done.
Thank you. One interesting question that just came in. It's about when you put the ballots in the envelope. Is that a manual process? Is that done by machine?
Oh no, it's done manually. It's very labor intensive. You have to, there is a label on this envelope, a label, identifying label. That label has to match the form number on the ballot. So it has to be checked. And after it's put in, I have supervisors, quality control, to recheck it, to make sure it's correct. Because I don't want the wrong ballot going to the wrong person.
Well,
They
thank
want
you.
their own ballot.
Thank you, Joanne. I think we're gonna let you
You're welcome.
go. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
This is terrific. You are thanks for doing this work, and thanks for sharing the process with us. Again, Temple Emanu-El members, this is the beginning of our civic engagement campaign. If you want to get involved, please find me. I'm on the website under the Tikkun Olam Social Action tab. Everybody have a great night. And Joanne, thank you very much. And Carol, thanks for bringing Joanne to us again.
Good night. And
Good
thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Make sure you vote.
Every vote counts.